Hey everybody, and welcome back to Fantasy Football. Just checking I was recording okay there. Game week number 12 we have here. It's going to be a fairly quick one because I'm a bit short on time at the minute. I've had an eventful weekend. And if you do hear some weird noises in the background, it's just my heating. I ran out of gas because I live in the middle of nowhere. I get like propane tanks and stuff, and I ran out of gas. So I've just got a delivery and hooked it up, thank God, because it was pretty cold. But anyway, we got 42 points. Well, I got 42 points. Average was 48, so a below average week for me. I will say I completely forgot there was a Friday game, and so didn't do my team in time. So I didn't make any changes to the team. Notable performances this week, I guess: Jimenez, Abraham, Salah, but not much else. Everybody else with a 2. Sterling was left as captain. Holebas on the bench did all right. But yeah, if we have a look at the Play League, who had the highest scores for us? He is 78. I think 78 might be the highest there, yeah, at the top. Or it's joint, actually. So Johnny Morris, the 4 Middables, with a 78. Vardy, yeah, good shout. Maddison, Sionku, yeah, so they were pretty confident that Arsenal were going to get smashed, which, well, they didn't get smashed, did they? But they were easily beaten, should we say. And then Rayman, Abraham, captain, Maddison, again, fairly confident that Leicester were going to do a job on Arsenal there, which is interesting. I mean, I did think Leicester would beat Arsenal, but I didn't... perhaps wasn't quite as confident, but yeah, that looks like 278s there were the highest. So I wouldn't say like the highest overall kind of like record breaking week or anything, probably because Man City were playing Liverpool, which we'll get into obviously. And then yeah, again, like the highest scoring team of the week, had a couple of 2s in there. Martial, Mane. Martial counts as a midfielder. Wow, okay, I didn't realise that. That's interesting. Great bench though, yeah, so I guess activated bench boost, yeah. A really good bench. Fair play there. Youssef Khaled. Okay, so let's get into the games. As I said, I might need to do a fairly quick one because, so Friday we had the relegation clash. The bottom 2 teams taking each other on, Norwich versus Watford. So Watford winning this 2-0. Has to be said, fairly comfortably. Gerald Deulofeu capitalising on a mistake and scoring. Just... You feel for Norwich, like I totally appreciate them wanting to, play the same way they played. Head up in the league, etc. You come up promoted, this is the way you played, this is the way we want to play, this is the only way we know how to play. Well, that way is going to get you relegated, I'm afraid. That's just the fact of the matter is, if you can want to play a certain way, but if you don't have the players needed to play that, if they're not to the quality, you've got to do what you can. You can't just turn around and be like, okay, this is our DNA, this is the way we play. I mean, look what happened when Frank de Boer took over at Crystal Palace, and they wanted a more kind of passing approach and stuff like that, and we nearly got relegated as a result because our players were just not capable of playing that way. Because I'm sure they would have been, like, eventually, but it was such a change for them, I think, and the step up in quality you have to be able to do. Like, there's very few teams who can play a very attacking, passing game of football and play it in a way which is entertaining and will win games. Like, realistically, of the teams in the Premier League who actually do that consistently and well, I mean, you're going up near the top, aren't you, really? Because all the rest of these guys are not consistent. You could say Spurs like to play kind of in there. They play like a high-intensity pressing game. What, they're 14th? It doesn't really work out very well, does it, sometimes? Liverpool, Leicester, Chelsea, Man City, yeah, they all play that way and they're all doing very well. The caveat to that is that they have exceptionally good players, all 4 of them. If you don't have the players, you can't really play that way. Bournemouth do play a very kind of passing-based, possession-based game. I would say they've slightly changed over the years a little bit, but what they have is a manager who's drilled that in over many years, And they really do still have a lot of the players they picked up from the Championship who were drilled in that way in the Championship. And I think they came up at a time when it was a lot rarer that teams did that. And as a result, they were caught out by Bournemouth a few times. And Bournemouth have kind of got in their little jive now as a kind of mid-table Premier League team with it. But I wouldn't say there's many other teams who can play that way and still survive. Like a lot of the time, people either have to adapt their tactics per, match, or they have to play more defensively and then counter-attack and do stuff like that. It's a difficult one. So I feel for Norwich, but I also think they're going down. I don't think they're bottom of the league, so that's not exactly like a bold statement or anything like that after 12 games, is it? But what I mean is that, like, sometimes like a January transfer window could change. Sometimes like you can have a manager change, but I don't feel like Norwich are going to change their manager. I don't feel like they're really going to strengthen too highly in January, like as in bring in, some world-class players or something. I just don't think they're capable of that. So then you turn around and go, well, what are they going to do to change? You've almost got a Huddersfield situation in a way. And we saw how that turned out, So hopefully Norwich kind of stick with Daniel Farke. Like, he got them into the Premier League on a great season in the Championship. And I hope that, if they go back down, which is looking quite likely, they stick with him and then he can rebuild the team and give it a second shot maybe. But realistically, I guess it depends, doesn't it? Because I don't think Norwich have outstretched themselves. So they haven't come up into the league a la Fulham and spent, hundreds of or 100 million, and they're panicking because they need another season in the Premier League. They're banking on that by they gambled. I don't think Norwich did. Norwich signed smartly, as in like within their kind of budget. They didn't break their wage budget by getting in the Premier League. They'll get parachute payments. So even if they go down, I think they'll have another crack at it, and they'll probably do quite well in the Championship next season. But this season's going to be hard for them, I think. I don't see how they turn it around. If they do, then fair play, but I don't see it. I think Watford always had that quality. I think there's a lot of players who are not firing correctly there. Like, when you look at that quality, Decore has been a very, very good midfielder the last few years. Will Hughes is very good. Capoue has played brilliantly for Watford. Deulofeu on his day is world class. Admittedly, that day sometimes is rare. Pereira is very, very good. You got Deeney, Gray on the bench. They've got some really good options. They've got a great goalkeeper and some decent defenders. So they shouldn't be down where they are. I don't know what happened at the beginning of the season. They got to the FA Cup final last season. They were comfortable in the league, same manager, and just seemed to collapse. So who knows what happened at Watford? I'd be interested to find out. But yeah, I think Norwich are done. Like, I can't see them coming back now. We had the kind of the 12:30 kickoff for Chelsea Crystal Palace. I didn't see Palace really get anything out of this game, to be completely honest with you. I thought maybe we might be able to get a draw, but Chelsea are on a really great run at the minute. I think they've got the best form in the league. Yeah, the only ones to have won their last 5 games in a row. And that's a 4-1, 1-0, 4-2, 2-1, 2-0. Like, they're just scoring really freely at the minute. Defence is still an issue. They play Man City next, which will be fascinating. Because you got two teams who are very good going forward, defensively very suspect, so we'll see. But I said right at the beginning of the season that Chelsea, in my opinion, had the squad to challenge for the title. I didn't know if Frank Lampard was the manager who could do that with them, but I looked at it and went, this is an excellent squad. Look at this bench, how strong this is. Christensen, really good defender. Azpilicueta, great defender. Billy Gilmour is a young up and coming, but he's still a very good player. Giroud, World Cup winner, Giroud. Hudson-Odoi, fantastic, winger. Batshuayi, international Belgian forward, like, great goal scorer. Like, they have a brilliant squad of players, and I can understand Frank Clark, them not challenging this season, because Lampard obviously wants to bed in more of the youngsters, and I think he's doing a really good job of that. But, people were saying that Chelsea weren't even going to finish in the top 4. And I always felt that was a little bit strong, because they still had a cracking squad. And yes, there was the unknown factor. I think I kind of said with Lampard, if I remember rightly, that he either would do really well or completely fail. Like I didn't feel like there would be a 6th or 7th. I felt it would either be a 12th or a top 4, and it's looking like it's the top 4. Hopefully they could kind of continue there. I think people are beginning to like Chelsea a little bit more now. I think for a long time Chelsea were not a very well liked club. I think that possibly some other teams are taking over that mantle now. The reason why I think Chelsea weren't a very liked club was because of the Abramovich era and being taken over. And of course, Abramovich is still in charge. Mourinho doesn't help as well. He doesn't really endear himself to people, does he? But I think now with this kind of like younger, like more attacking football, Frank Lampard's just a likable guy. I think Chelsea are coming about as maybe could come into being a kind of a neutral favourite in a way. Of course, there will be people out there who still hate them, but I think they're a very entertaining team to watch. I think it's really great seeing these youngsters getting a chance, coming through. It will be fascinating to see what Lampard does when their transfer window is available. So when they're available to buy again, is Zuma, James, Tomori, Emerson is this the defence he thinks is going to win him a title? I don't know. Maybe there's a world-class centre-back to come in there or something. I think James is looking very good. I think Tomori's looking very good. I'm really not too sure on Zuma. Emerson's doing well. Midfield, I think, is cracking at the minute. And forward will be interesting if he sticks with Abraham. I mean, personally, I absolutely think he should stick with Abraham. How many goals is he on now? He's on 10 goals in 12 games. Like, I get a feeling like if they'd have brought in a youngster who wasn't English and he was scoring that many goals, it would be the talk of the town, wouldn't it? Like, it would just be. People would be, if Abraham was Italian or Spanish or German or French, like people would be like, oh my god, this guy's like the next Mbappe or the next Balotelli. I don't know. Anyway, maybe just the next Mbappe, or the next Ronaldo or something like that. But because it's Tammy Abraham, and last season he was in the Championship, I think everyone's just like, oh, he'll be crap soon. Don't worry about it. I don't think he is going to be crap soon. Like I fully admit I was wrong about him. I didn't think he was good enough to step up, but I think he is now. Of course, it helps when he has a really quality team behind him, but he's still got to finish those chances, and I think he's been finishing really well. So yeah, well done to Chelsea. Am I worried about Palace in a little bit of free fall? Got Liverpool next. I mean, we played Man City, Arsenal, Leicester, Chelsea, Liverpool in 5 games. Am I worried? No, I'm not worried. Like, get them out of the way. Let's move on. Like, I mean, that is a seriously tough run. We drew with Arsenal, which is probably about right. We should be drawing with them and how they are at the minute. But the rest are much, much better than us. Like Leicester, Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool. That's the top 4 we had to play in 5 games. And then 6th place as well. So, am I worried? No, I'm not worried. Palace are probably where they should be. People have been moaning Hodgson, but I mean that's a horrible run to go through. In some ways, it's best to get that out of the way with now, and we can move on with the rest of our season. And yeah, it would be nice if we could have picked up. Like Palace traditionally have been the type of team who do pick up points against big clubs because of the way we play. And I wouldn't say we played particularly well in any of those games. It was a good comeback against Arsenal, but ultimately, those teams are way, way better. They're out of our league, almost. They're phenomenal teams at the minute. And, I'm not too despondent by another loss. I think we'll lose again to Liverpool. I'm pretty sure we will lose to Liverpool. So, yeah, we'll move on from there and see what happens. Burnley 3, West Ham 0. West Ham in tons of trouble, aren't they? Like, they're just in so much trouble. 16th. Spent a fortune in the last 2 seasons. Pellegrini's just not doing it. Everton and West Ham, like, I'll, at the end of the season, I'll look at what my predictions were, but I'm pretty sure I had them both quite high up. I think you always feel with these two, there's a tendency to self-destruct, and there's a tendency to just be crap, and that is coming. And if you just told me 14, 15, 16th after 12 games to be Tottenham, Everton, West Ham, I would have thought you were crazy, and see a Sheffield United in 5th. Premier League's bonkers sometimes, isn't it? But ultimately, these teams have just not been up to it this season. West Ham. I mean, Tottenham have we all know what's going on at Tottenham in a way in terms of want-away players. They have European football midweek, etc., etc. But West Ham have got no excuse. Like, they don't have European football. Same with Everton. There's no excuse. They have a whole week to prepare. You're losing 3-0 to Burnley. No offence to Burnley. They're not exactly the kings of goals, are they? West Ham, you're just completely outplayed by Burnley. Look, 12 shots on target from Burnley. 14 shots. It's a hammering. Really. I don't know why Nick Pope was a man of the match. Probably the West Ham goalkeeper should have been man of the match. Fair play to Burnley as well. Burnley grind away. They're in 10th now after 3 bad losses, I think. The Leicester one you can understand. Chelsea, sure. Sheffield United was probably one they did not like. They play Watford next. I wouldn't be surprised if they win that game or at least get a draw. And Burnley are just going to be Burnley, aren't they? They're just going to mid-table in the Premier League. That's what they do. Who have we got next? Newcastle, Bournemouth. Great win for Newcastle, I think, here. Really, really good win. Coming from behind as well. Bournemouth scoring first with Harry Wilson. And then Newcastle coming from behind. And that's a really good win for them. They're in 13th now. They really do have some breathing space now. They've got 7 points away from the relegation zone. They've picked up 3 wins in the last 5. They play Aston Villa next, so that could be another win for them potentially. They're doing really well. Like, I know everyone was really anti-Steve Bruce. I totally get it. He's not the most glamorous manager in the world. But Steve Bruce is a very solid manager. He's a lot better than people give him credit for. He used to be Crystal Palace manager for quite a short period of time, and he was really solid then. Excuse me while I have a drink. In that short space of time, he was very solid. And everywhere he's gone, I never feel like he underperforms. Sometimes I feel like he gets out of a squad exactly what they're capable of. So sometimes that squad is not really capable of doing much more than what he gets out of it, which might be mid-table or scrapping for relegation or whatever. But he gets out of them what they're worth. The argument with Benitez was he made Newcastle better than the sum of their parts. I think Steve Bruce is making Newcastle the sum of their parts, which shouldn't be underestimated. But ultimately, he's doing a good job. And I like Newcastle's team. They have some really interesting players. There's a bit of flair up top. You still have John Joe Shelvey spraying those passes. DeAndre Yedlin, I think, has come on really well in recent seasons. They have a pretty good team, They have the Longstaff brothers as well, obviously, who people are raving about. Dwight Gale's even back on the bench. Look at that. Jesus Christ, never thought I'd see the day. Joel Linton needs to get in the goals, as does Almiron. They're doing okay, I think, at the minute, Newcastle. They're chugging along, aren't they? They're doing all right. Bournemouth are just Bournemouth, aren't they? They're going to be around there probably by the end of the season. That's just what they do. Wolves next, which will be a very interesting match, as they're both on the same points, one goal in it. Next up, Southampton, Everton. So Everton did win. So we got to give them credit for that. But they beat a Southampton side who are pretty terrible. They've lost. They were on a massive losing streak. Yes, they've played some tough games, to be fair. Drew with Wolves, but they're not a good side. You just kind of think like Everton, okay, fine, buys a bit more time for Mario Silva. Marco Silva? Mario Silva. I do apologise. Terrible with names. Buys a bit more time for Marco Silva, doesn't it? But 12 games, you're 15th. Like, the league doesn't lie, you can argue and go, okay, a couple more wins, and they could be up there in fifth. They're on 14 points. They're a win away from getting up to fifth, and then suddenly your whole season's changed. But you're still terrible. We've still lost 6 games out of 12. Half the games you've lost this season. We'll get on to Arsenal, but it's the same kind of thing. It's like, you wanted to be challenging for that top 4, and you're nowhere near it. You're 11 points off it, and in terrible run of form. Scraping past Southampton, who you should be beating. It's just not. It's not good. And yeah, fair credit to them. They did win the game. They pulled it out. Sure, they might have crumbled after Ings equalised. They dominated 24 shots. Had a bit more possession, a bit more touches. And maybe you could say that's a turning point, because in the past Everton would have lost those games. I still just don't feel like. I mean, let's look at their team. Everton. So Holgate, Digne, Mina and Sidibe. England's number 1 goalkeeper there. A decent enough defence. Midfield is excellent in my opinion. Richarlison's a very good player. Sigurdsson's a quality established Premier League player. Walcott, he's not getting any younger, but he is still a very good wide player. Schneiderling's very good. Tom Davies is a good player as well. You're comparing these sides, like Everton, you should be winning. Look at the bench and who they can bring on. Iwobi, Calvert-Lewin, Coleman, Keane, Baines, and look who Southampton can bring on. It's not really the same, is it? So yeah, I personally think Southampton will get relegated. I always seem to think that with Southampton though, and they always seem to scrape out. There's still time for them to get out of it, and Southampton could buy, some players in January, but I mean they've lost 8 games already. They're on 8 points. They've got Arsenal next, which they'll probably win, won't they? Excuse me. But yeah. Well, if I was an Everton fan, I'd be desperately disappointed. It's one of those things where it's like you seem to be doing everything right pre-season, and then you get into the season and everything just collapses. Everton brought big in the summer. They spent a lot of money on players. They have done over the last few seasons. For Everton, this is not a Champions League side, and they deserve better than 15th in the league. Spurs, Sheffield United 1-1. I mean, this had 1-1 really written all over it, or some sort of draw, or at least Sheffield United taking something away. Sheffield United obviously performing exceptionally well this season. They've only lost 3 of their 12 games. They're just very hard to beat, and don't underestimate that in the Premier League. Like, when you're hard to beat, you will move up the table, because a lot of the teams are pretty easy to beat. You could argue and say, hey, have they really played a lot of the top teams? I mean, yeah, I guess they have in a way. They've got Man United next. I'm sure they'll be right up for that one, personally. Second best defence in the league. Yes, they're not scoring goals. That's a problem for them. 13 and 12 is you have to look down more towards here to see teams worse than that. But only conceding 9 in 12, that's pretty good going. Pretty good going. Leicester, Arsenal. No surprises here for everyone, really. Leicester winning this game. Arsenal held out to the 68th minute, and they didn't look terrible. But ultimately, they capitulated, really, like Arsenal do, which was once Jamie Vardy scored, and kind of Unai Emery kind of said this as well, was like, he was like, oh, once they scored, it stopped us from doing anything in the game, or something like that. And it was a weird kind of way to say it, because it's like, it's only 1-0. A lot of teams go 1-0 down and then manage to win a game. But yeah, I guess he just felt like he had to come here and nick a 1-0 or something like that. And once they conceded that, it was game up, really, which is worrying for a manager to say. I mean, clearly Unai Emery is not right for the club. they released weird statement, backing him, but it wasn't just like the usual vote of confidence, but it was really like kind of blaming the fans, and it did not sit well with Arsenal fans at all. I can totally understand why. We talked about the whole booing and stuff like that, and listen, I'm totally 100% behind the fact that fans have a right to, to be vocal about their displeasure in the team's performance. Of course, I don't agree they're allowed to abuse people. I think there's a difference between, booing or something like that. For me, booing is not abuse. Like, it's not very nice, but it's not abuse. In that way, booing is showing displeasure. Like it's almost pantomime in a way. And so, or to get a bit, or not be, or to essentially to criticise the club is not noise. It's not abuse. It's fans turning around and saying like, this isn't right at the club. We're fans of Arsenal who have been there many, many years, and same with every club. They've got fans who have been there so long, and they've probably seen these situations 10 times over. And sometimes, owners of clubs have only been there for a few years, or managers only been there for a year or so, and the fans are turning around to you and going, this isn't right, you need to change this. And I totally get that there's quite a few out there who are just like, I don't care, I just want my team to win so I can walk into work or school or whatever on a Monday and be like, yeah, my team won, look at me, I'm the best because I support Arsenal, which is utter nonsense, obviously. And I get that there is a percentage of people who are like that, but I think there's also a percentage, a majority who care about the club they support and are very worried about the direction they're taking. And then when they kind of get told that they're, the cause of this problem because they're saying there's a problem, like, it just doesn't make sense, does it? It's like there's the team aren't playing well, and so what the board are expecting the fans to do is to constantly be positive about the club and to constantly, and in some way that's going to turn around and turn performances around. I mean, if the players are that fragile mentally that they cannot take, fans criticising them, whether that's on YouTube or whether in papers or whether that's in, on websites or whether that's in the stadium by booing them. If they're so fragile they can't take that, they're not going to cut it at this elite level, are they? Like, try going to play for Real Madrid. You get booed every week. If your team doesn't win 6-0, you get booed. You misplace one pass, you get booed. They're vicious, those fans. They expect the best. And Arsenal fans expect more than what they're getting, and they're dissatisfied with that. And they have every right to expect more in a way, because their team have been spending a lot. They have very high priced tickets. They're traditionally a big club, but realistically, with the way they're playing, they're more like a mid-table club, and obviously they don't want to accept that. And they, there's an argument to say they shouldn't have to accept that in a way, but I guess it would be different. It would be different if Emery was a manager who was, if he was out there, being positive, playing attacking football, and he was like, listen, this is going to take time for my players to get used to it. When we click, we'll click, and maybe we just need a couple more signings or something like that, and we know that where we are isn't good enough. But they're not. They're basically saying like, oh, everything's working out fine, it's just going to take a little bit of time, and then we're going to be brilliant. And it's like, everyone's looking at Arsenal going, you had one shot on target in the game against Leicester. They didn't have a shot after the 58th minute, I think. I saw a stat. This isn't right for any football club, If I go, if you look at Palace against Chelsea, that's the same. We had one shot, but Crystal Palace are a mid-table to lower table Premier League side. We're playing a top 4 side away, and we're getting the same number of shots on target as Arsenal. Arsenal with Lacazette, Ozil, Aubameyang up front. There's a serious tactical problem there. Arsenal don't have a bad side. I would argue they have a bad defence. However, I also would argue that I don't think that defence is very well coached. Look who they can bring on. Just, you had one shot on target. It's incredible for the club to come out with a statement like that afterwards. If you haven't read it, like it wasn't a statement. So they were talking to a guy at the Athletic, like, and that was the kind of, so it was kind of like conveyed through him in a way. But they seriously need to sort out whoever is in their PR department, because that is not going to cut it, is it? I mean, I think all the fans probably want right now, the reasonable ones, like, probably just want Arsenal to turn around and be like, yeah, this is not working right now. We've got things in process to try and make that work, We've got targets lined up, in January and at the end of the season, whatever. And if they truly believe that Emery is the right coach, then okay, fair enough. That's their prerogative. I don't think anybody else believes that. And that's not to say, Emery is a bad coach. I just feel like he's not suited maybe to the Premier League or Arsenal Football Club. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes you get a manager and it clicks. Sometimes you get one and it doesn't. But I feel like it's not clicking for them, and they need to look elsewhere. And everyone's like, oh, well, who are they going to get? They're not in the Champions League, blah, blah, blah. They're still a big enough name now to attract a top-class manager. What they have to be careful of is if they can consistently finish outside the top four, they're consistently, dropping down. If they're losing big-name players, like if you're a manager, you coming into Arsenal and you're going, okay, great, I get to work with Lacazette, Ozil, Aubameyang up front. Well, and Pepe. Well, if they have another season not in the Champions League, these players going to want to hang around? Aubameyang's coming towards the end of his career. Is he going to be like, yeah, sure, I want another Europa League season? I mean, it doesn't wash, I don't think. I think I've heard as well there's an argument to be said that with Emery's record in the Europa League, maybe the club are thinking that the priority this season is to win the Europa League. Well, I don't think they're going to do that. Like, I don't think Leicester City are the greatest team in the world. Yes, they're playing very well right now. I think there might be some stiffer competition in the Europa League, especially when the Champions League dumps out some of their teams. And I don't see Arsenal getting past those with the way they're playing. I know they got to the final last season, but then they spectacularly balls that up, which is why they're not in the Champions League this season, and Chelsea are. So, yeah, Southampton next. They should beat Southampton. Listen, they're at home to Southampton. In the same way Man United beat Brighton at home. Like, there should be enough quality in that Arsenal lineup. I can't see that, Southampton will be able to stop Aubameyang, Lacazette, Ozil, Pepe. Like, I can't see that they'll be able to stop them scoring. So I would imagine that they will win that game. But it doesn't really buy them any time, because it's the system that's not working. They have a -1 goal difference. When was the last time you saw Arsenal with a minus goal difference, Spurs have got a +1 and they're in bloody 14th. So yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. It's one of those ones where I think the fans just feel a bit powerless, like they don't really have a say, and then they come out with weird statements like that, and it's just odd. Man United 3-1. I don't think this is, Man United are back. Yeah, we're in 7th. Yeah. They're still shit. Like, for a Man United team, I'm talking about, 7th in the league is still the 7th best team currently in England, technically. But they're still shit. There's still massive amount to rebuild. I will say Martial coming back has been a huge difference for them. He has looked really good up front. 2 assists in this game. I think he's looked really, really good. Really holds the ball up well. Really plays like a team player up there. Rashford missed a lot of chances. But Brighton totally played into Man United's hands. Like, Man United are a counter-attacking team. And they played into their hands. When teams have played deep against them, they've been able to do nothing. When Brighton, no, it's not Brighton, sorry. Newcastle got their win against them. It's because they played deep and they hit them on the break. And Man United couldn't break down. They didn't have the midfield to break down, a stubborn kind of 2 banks of 4 type thing. And Brighton did not play like that. And as a result, Brighton tried to play the same way they played every game, and as a result, they got beat. That's a little bit of naivety, I think, there from Potter. If you see teams who have beaten bigger teams by the way they play that way. Don't turn around and go, we can beat them our way. They might have said, "Oh, Man United are not doing well at the minute. They're there for the taking. They're below us in the league. We should be playing them. It'd be great to go to Old Trafford and play our way and win." Like, it doesn't work like that, though, does it? Really, Man United have still got enough quality, just about, to beat a team if they're going to capitulate to Man United's plan A. They don't have a plan B, Man United. They have a plan A: counter attack. Use the speed up front. Martial, James, Rashford. If you just neutralise that, they've got nothing. So, we'll see. Sheffield United, they won't do that. I generally feel like Sheffield United are going to beat Man United, weirdly enough, because they're not going to play to Man United's strength. I don't think Man United are good enough to unlock them. I think also they might have lost McTominay, who went down injured, which is a massive blow because he's actually been playing really well for them in the last few games. The other thing I was going to say about Man United is, people have been kind of touting out these targets who Man United should be getting and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, the thing is, the most effective signing you've had this season, really, has been Dan James. You bought him for 15 million from the Championship. Maybe Man United shouldn't be turning around and going, we need to spend, because Man United need players, okay? They don't just need like, oh, we just need one striker and then we'll be great or whatever. They need like 4 or 5 players. And the club don't want to spend that much. So why don't you use your scouts and actually look for some players who are a bargain out there? It can be done. Look at Leicester. That's what I don't understand. All I see Man United get linked with. And I feel like it's because, from a fan expectation, it's like, we're Man United, we should be buying the best players in the world. Like, we should be. And I feel like where they're at the minute, they can't get the best players in the world. They're a Europa League side who cannot break into the top 4 in England. They're nowhere near challenging for a title. So, if they're looking at top players in the world, the only reason those top players would come and join Man United is for money. And then you get into a problem because you're like, well, if you're not qualifying for the Champions League every season, then that money's dwindling, and then you're having to pay, say they wanted to sign James Maddison, okay? There's been talk of James Maddison, Man United needing him. Well, James Maddison is flying high with Leicester at the minute. Form of his life. Leicester are second right now in the league. Yeah, they're way behind Liverpool, but they're second. They're on a great run. They've got this charismatic, manager who, notoriously has been a bit of a meme, but he's come away from Celtic with, winning everything every season, which, yes, maybe you could argue you should do with Celtic, but it's not that easy, to be fair. And I feel like he's come in and he's playing some really good football. He's developing well. Leicester should be in the Champions League next season. Like, they should be, unless they spectacularly collapse. So why would he come to Man United? Just to double his money? Don't underestimate the lure of money, but is that all Man United want? They just want players who come in there for the money. With no disrespect to Pogba, is that not the reason why Pogba came to Man United? Because Juventus couldn't, he knew he could get X 100,000 a week. Isn't that not the reason why Sanchez chose Man United over Man City? Because Man United were going to pay him 500 grand a week. Is that really the type of players that Man United want? Is that the players the fans want? They just want the names to come in and be like, oh, look, we got this guy. Or do they want to build a team? Traditionally, Man United build a team. Yes, they add 1 or 2 big signings a season, into it. But they don't. The Galacticos system of Real Madrid is not sustainable. And really, it didn't even win that much for them. Like, it did win them a few Champions Leagues. But Barcelona, doing it the other way of building up their youth players and bringing them through their academy, won so much more. So I kind of feel like Man United owners don't want to go out there and buy, £100 million players consistently. They don't want to. They're never going to spend 500 million to rebuild the team, like people are saying that they need to do. So they have to do the alternative way, which is to look out there for maybe some younger players who they can bring through, or some players, a bit more Moneyball system here. This Moneyball thing gets thrown around a lot, and people are claiming Liverpool are this kind of prime example. They buy players to fit a system. Well, the problem there is Man United don't have a system. They don't have a manager who has a system they play. You look at the top four in the Premier League right now. Klopp. You can look at the DNA of a Klopp team exactly playing right. Brendan Rodgers, the way he plays. Leicester City are playing. Chelsea, Lampard, the way he wants to play. Chelsea are playing. City, obviously, the way Pep wants. Even bloody Sheffield United have a way Chris Wilder is playing. Man United don't have a way. They chop and change every week. No one really knows what they're doing. They don't have they're... I feel like the top clubs have a system and they buy players that fit into that system, and that's the way they play because they're the top clubs, and they can, Liverpool can play that way against teams. Man City can play that way against teams. They're like top clubs. I feel like the lower clubs, the mid-table and lower clubs, they try and buy players and fit them into a system a little bit more. There are some exceptions, maybe a Wolves, a Bournemouth, down there, but Norwich. But generally, that's what they do, and Liverpool kind of combine both. So Liverpool don't go out there and necessarily buy. When did Liverpool go out there and buy, they spent a lot of money on players, but you wouldn't argue that they have necessarily gone out there and brought Galacticos. They may have turned into some of the best players in the world, like Sadio Mane. Everyone knew he was a great player, but ultimately he came from Southampton. If you kind of take away transfer fees and look at the player, you're going, I think when that came, Liverpool fans were probably very excited because they're like, oh, we know Mane's a really good player, but no one expected him to turn into the player he is. But he just fits the system. Same with Salah. Salah came from Italy and had done much better than he did at Chelsea. But I think people were like, yeah, that's a good signing. But clearly they did not think he was going to turn into what he is. Firmino, exactly the same. Fabinho, a lot of people obviously knew Fabinho was a very good player, but he has just come on leaps and bounds. Virgil van Dijk, Alisson, you could name, the whole squad basically has, yes, they've spent a lot of money on those players because what they've done is they've identified the players they want and they've gone, get him. Man United are not doing that. I hear Mandzukic coming in. Well, hang on a minute. If you're playing a counter-attacking style, what the hell is Mandzukic doing anywhere near that team? The guy's 34, for Christ's sake. Anyway, I could go on about Man United all week. If you can check out my Football Manager series, if you haven't already, well, we're playing as Man United, so I'm actually trying to do something, putting my money where my mouth is. Wolves beat Villa in the derby, the Birmingham derby, or the Midlands derby. I don't really know what they call it. Anyway, they're both from around Birmingham. Wolves beat them. It's no massive surprise. Jimenez is in a really good run of form. He's a very good player. I don't know if he's going to stay at Wolves for much longer. Do you know what I mean? I feel like there might be some bigger clubs coming in for him. And then the big one is Liverpool against Manchester City. Liverpool. I don't feel like this is a shock in a way. I think a lot of people thought it'd be cagey. Obviously, there was controversy with VAR, blah, blah, blah. I'm not really going to get into it. You guys have all seen that millions of times. I will say that for Man City, they kind of have to play to the whistle. I don't feel like they did so much with Fabinho's goal. It was a cracking strike, though. Absolutely brilliant. Liverpool are playing like one of the best teams in the world right now. They absolutely are, and a lot of people seem to dislike Liverpool. I kind of don't get it. I look at them as a team and I go, they have this really charismatic manager who's very likeable. I think a lot of their players are very likeable. I think the club and the place is brilliant. I don't know. If Man United fans and things like that, Liverpool fans are going to be insufferable if they win the league. We can't let it happen, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Man United fans are insufferable when they win the league. Chelsea fans are insufferable when they win the league. Like, everyone is. You get to gloat a bit, But yeah, Man City, essentially, look at that defence for Man City. That Fernandinho, Stones, Angelino, Kyle Walker. Brilliant, attack. But yeah, not they're paying. I think they'll probably sign a defender in January. I think they've got to. They want to salvage this season. They might look at it now and go, okay, Champions League might be the priority, which is fine, but you're still not going to win the Champions League with that defence. Claudio Bravo, he'll get a lot of shit from this game. I feel like it would have been different if Ederson was in goal. I feel like maybe he would have got to Fabinho's and I can't remember if it was Mane's or Salah's, which was close. They were both headers, weren't they? No, Mane's was beat him at like the it kind of squirmed under him. I feel like Edison is a much better keeper, and he probably would have got a bit more on that. You don't know, of course, but that was a massive blow. And people could be like, oh, well, they only beat us because, we had a defender injured and we had our goalkeeper injured. Well, I mean, Liverpool had Alisson injured for most of the season. They've they had Matip out, who was playing brilliantly. They had to play Dejan Lovren, who has been a complete meme player, but played brilliantly. So I feel like there's nothing that Man City can kind of say other than the fact they got beat. They got beat well. Liverpool are absolutely cracking side. They're just ruthless. Salah's goal was just a work of art. Like Trent Alexander-Arnold with this brilliant crossfield pass. Robertson crossing it in with a brilliant cross. And then Salah just smashing it home with his head. And it was just a brilliant goal. And that's just what Liverpool do. And people are like, get the title. The title's not over. Don't be stupid. The title's not over until it's mathematically over. I've seen Newcastle submit to a 9-point lead to Man United. I've seen things over the years that you wouldn't believe. Who would have believed Leicester could win the league? Leicester could win the league again this season. Liverpool could collapse. They could have a massive load of injuries. You just don't know. If you turn around and go, if Liverpool can continue this way for the rest of the season, playing the way they are and avoid injuries, it's highly likely they win the league. Absolutely. The problem is playing that way, not avoiding injuries. They have such a fixture congestion in December. They're going to drop points in December. I know it. They're going to drop points because they have so many games. They're flying to Qatar to play there and everything, and they're going to pick up niggles and injuries, and they have a good squad. Don't get me wrong. That is a fantastic bench. That players that would walk into most other teams in the league. Same with City as well, but it's brutal. Their December is brutal. So let's not write anything off right now, other than to say after 12 games, Liverpool are the best team in the league by a long way. But let's see where we are at 24 games. It could be very different. Very, very different. But I think we'll finish up there. I'll have a brief look, actually, of... we're going to miss a week because obviously we've got the European... not European, international games. And then we come back on the 23rd. West Ham Spurs. Could be an interesting game. Bournemouth Wolves, both teams near each other. Arsenal Southampton. Arsenal should win that fairly comfortably, I think. Leicester Brighton. It's a tricky one. Brighton are very good at home, but you would imagine Leicester coming through that. Liverpool are going to beat Palace. I'm 100% sure of that. Everton should beat Norwich. Watford Burnley's an interesting one. Man City Chelsea is obviously the pick of the games there. Looks really good. And I think Sheffield United Man United is going to be really good as well. Aston Villa Newcastle is not very inspiring, but it's quite an important game. So yeah, we'll see. But till next time, guys, let me know what you think. And I'll see you soon. Bye bye.